8.1, Slope. Math book, pages 74 to 77. Slope. Slope is the rate of change between any 2 points on a line. So the slope is defined as the change in y values divided by the change in x values. So if we look at the example to the right, the change in y values goes up by 2. The change in x values goes to the right by 1. So that's how they get the vertical change being 2 divided by the horizontal change of 1. 2 divided by 1 can be reduced down to 2. As a reminder, we learned this as rise divided by run. And you're probably thinking, Mrs. Needley, you have misspelled rise. I use a y instead of an I to indicate that the rise values are the values that go up and down, while the run values go right or left. So if we look at this graph below, here we have our rise values, and here we have our run values. So the rise means it's going up, the run value means that in this case you were going right. Of course, sometimes your values are going to be going down and to the left, but in this case, it is rising up and running to the right. So letter A, graph the data about plant height for a science fair project. Then find the slope of the line. Explain what the slope represents in the work zone. So my ordered pairs are 1, 1.5, 2, 3, 3, 4, and 5/10, 4, 6. Sometimes I find it easier to start off with graphing ones that are whole numbers or integers, and other times it doesn't make a difference. So I'll start with 1, 1 and 5/10. So I start at 0, 0. I go to the right 1, I go up to 1 and 5/10. So that's halfway between 1 and 2 vertically. Then I go and plot 2, 3. I go to the right 2, I go up 1, 2, 3. Then I go and plot 3 and 4 and 5/10. So I start at 0, 0, go to the right 3, go up to 4 and 5/10. Next, 4, 6, I start at 0, 0, go to the right 4, go up to 6. Now I'm going to connect my points. The next step is to find the slope of the line. If you want to use the table, you can. I'm going to go ahead and use the graph that I created instead of that. I'm going to figure out how many I'm rising up from the bottom point to my second point. So I'm going up 3. Then I want to know how many I'm going to the right. Well, the scale is going up by 1, so I'm going to the right 2. So if I want to take my rise value divided by my run value, I'm rising up 3 divided by my running value of 2. 3/2 is my slope. Letter B. Jessica has a balance of $35 on her cell phone account. She adds $10 each week for the next 4 weeks. In the work zone, graph the account balance versus time. Oh, I'm sorry, I misread. We're actually doing number 1. The table shows the number of pages Adriano read in X hours. Graph the data, then find the slope of the line. Explain what the slope represents. So I'm going to graph the data of 150. So starting at 0, 0, go to the right 1, up 50. Plotting 2, 100, 3, 150, 4, 200. Again, all these values I'm getting from my table on the left. Now I'm going to connect these points. So I graphed the data. Now I want to find the slope of the line. I am increasing by 50 vertically, and I am increasing 1 horizontally. So if I take my rise divided by my run, I'm increasing by 50 divided by going to the right 1. So that means it is 50, because 50 divided by 1 simplifies down to 50. So the slope means 50 pages per hour. I'm getting my labels based off of my vertical axis of the number of pages, my horizontal axis of time in hours. Number 3, the graph shows the average speed of two cars on the highway. Letter A, what does 120 represent? Well, if I take a look at 120, that's going to be this point right here. So that's on my red graph. So after 2 hours, you drove 120 miles. What is 1 and 5/10, 65 and 5/10 represent? Well, that's going to be on my blue graph. That is after 1.5 hours, you have traveled 67 and 5/10 miles. Letter C, what does the ratio of the y-coordinate to the x-coordinate for each pair of points on the graph represent? The slope of time in hours to I misspoke. This represents the slope of distance in miles per hour. Letter D, what does the slope of each line represent? The amount they travel per hour. Letter E, which car is traveling faster? How can you tell from the graph? Well, whichever line is steeper, that's whom is driving faster. So in this case, it's going to be car A because they have a steeper slope.